this is our very first video of Kyla. And she's sitting here eating her keys. Say hello. Today is Friday. Today is Friday, December 22nd. And Kyla is 7 months and 3 weeks old. She's almost 8 months old and she's going to be having her first Christmas. Yay! Christmas Santa! Woo. Look at that face.
Before there were timelines and feeds, there were tapes. My earliest memories live on VHS. Grainy, fragile, full of static and warmth. You can hear the hum of the camera, my mother's laugh, and voice full of youthful notes that have since matured from behind the lens. Each tape feels alive, not because it's perfect, because it's imperfect. As I watch these tapes, it's crazy to me to see my core memories of what my grandmother's house looked like for the first half of my life in live action. Like the old kitchen before she had it redone. A vision I never thought I would be able to see again. Memories of my aunt cooking Thanksgiving turkey and summer nights with her special fried chicken flashing in my mind. My grandmother's living room at Christmas time filled with that special aura that made me fall in love with Christmas in the first place and shaped my childhood memories of the holiday. The hallway and old bathroom floor I grew up with, the patterns on the floor, the way it looked, the way it felt. I forgot how familiar all of this used to feel until I saw it again on these tapes. The footage was raw, the moments real, private, and unvisited.
Stop the tape! Hi, my name is Kyla Stokes, and I am... I don't know my line. Cut! Cut! Hi, my name is Kyla Stokes, and I'm the director for the video that you're about to watch. And I'm also an actor in it. This video is called, if you saw That's So Raven, if you watched That's So Raven, it's like that. So just keep in mind. Okay, we're going to tell you the name of it at the end. The whole crew.
Marcia Kinder talks about database cinema, where stories are made out of fragments that the viewer themselves assemble. These VHS tapes were the very first version of that. Every clip, from Christmas to First Steps, all the way to when I was able to record my own creative narratives myself, were all a part of a database of memory. They weren't edited or redesigned for an audience. It was lived, recorded, and archived. This was storytelling as memory keeping, not self-promotion, as many personal narratives seem to be now on social media. Sometimes a few of these moments made it into the public, like, for example, America's Funniest Home Videos, where private home footage became national entertainment. But for the most part, most of our lives remained offline, unseen and intimate between us and our family members.
Where is Kyla? Playing with the flowers as usual. One of her favorite pastimes.
I swear this plant lives in the core memories of my heart. I never would have remembered it if I hadn't watched this video. It's funny how something so small, such as seeing myself eating the leaves on a fake plant, can bring back a hidden memory clear as day. Eric Klutenberg calls obsolete technologies imaginary media, machines that once held our hope and desire for connection. Camcorders and VHS tapes weren't just recording devices. They were actually hope machines. People imagine that these technologies could capture the essence of relationships and allow people to relive moments perfectly. It made us believe that our stories could last forever, but time, like technology, moves on. And soon, our stories began leaving the boxes and entering the digital world. Before the cloud, there were shoe boxes full of memories captured on VHS or developed into physical photographs. Before likes, there were photo books passed around at a family gathering, given approval by warm smiles and the commentary of everybody looking at the pictures. My grandmother's mother made one of these albums in Germany in the 1920s, her own curated world. Those albums were personal and private archives of her life and the life of her family. Stories told for family and friends, not followers. If it had not been for these albums, I would not know what any of my grandmother's family looked like, my side from Germany. And I also would have never had a glimpse at a version of my grandmother as she was growing up. This is so important to me, as my grandmother is the most important person in my life. My grandmother then followed in her mother's footsteps, keeping multiple photo albums in her home to this day, filled with pictures of my mother and aunt's childhood, along with photos of me as I was growing up. My mother then also carried the tradition on her own collection from her college years and different parts of her motherhood journey. I also joined that lineage of photo keeping when I got my first disposable camera. Waiting a week for the film to develop taught patience, the kind that just doesn't exist anymore. The photos came back carrying the thrill of surprise. Did this one come out right? Did I blink? Each envelope of film was a tiny time capsule that couldn't be edited or deleted. I had to just accept it how it was in the moment. When I received my first digital camera, everything changed. Suddenly, I could see the photo the second that I took it. If I didn't like my angle or my smile, I could delete it and try again. That instant feedback shifted something subtle but powerful. It gave me control over my personal narrative. I wasn't just documenting moments anymore. I was curating them. The digital camera marked the beginning of selective storytelling, where every captured moment could be adjusted, filtered, or erased before it ever left the screen. That same sense of control and curation followed us online. As cameras and computers began to merge, our memories were no longer confined to the pages of a photo album, but were ready to live in digital spaces. And that is where MySpace enters the story. If the digital camera gave us control over what we showed, MySpace gave us control over how we showed it. We weren't just keeping memories anymore, we were building identities. Unlike the simplicity of uploading photos to a family computer, MySpace was more so an act of creation. You had to learn a little code, HTML and CSS, to change your background colors, customize your font. You could even embed a song that played the moment somebody visited your page. That song said everything before your words did. It was your soundtrack, your mood, your digital aura. 2 of the top songs that I had on my page almost all of the time were Differences by Genuine and also Salt, Pepper, Ketchup, and Hot Sauce, a Philly delicacy by DJ D-Wiz. Just by those 2 songs alone, you can tell when people came to my page, I either wanted them to feel a neo-soul type of vibe, very smooth, very inviting, very comforting, or I wanted it to feel like a party. I wanted to get their energy pumping as soon as they hit my page. But what really made MySpace revolutionary was the way that you could interact with others online. You could send messages, comment on photos, write on bulletin boards, and rank your friends publicly in your top 8. It was almost a social experiment in hierarchy, aesthetics, and connection all at one time. For the first time, we were performing our identities, building an audience of friends and strangers who could see the versions of ourselves that we chose to show through our online profile. MySpace represented a turning point. The personal narrative moved from being for ourselves to being for others. It blurred the line between diary and display, between authenticity and public performance. Helen Conrad O'Brien writes that imaginary worlds are built through imagination and technology. that each one is a reflection of selfhood. And that is exactly what MySpace was, a little world that we created pixel by pixel. Then came Facebook, and the tone shifted. Facebook was sleeker, more structured, more uniform. Everyone's page looked the same. You couldn't customize your background. You couldn't add music. You could only update your status. Instead of glittery banners, you had a clean white space. Instead of soundtracks, you had timelines. On Facebook, self-presentation became less about creativity and more about communication. You weren't coding your identity. You were curating your updates. The personal narrative became chronological and social, a living feed of moments, thoughts, and milestones. This was the beginning of the public diary era, the phase where we began to document our lives in real time, not for ourselves, but for every one of our friends to witness when we weren't around them, like a shared collective memory. Every single post became part of a growing archive of identity, and every like or comment became a form of validation that shaped how we continued to share. This was the start of what Gene Youngblood calls expanded cinema, where media isn't confined to just screens, but becomes part of our consciousness. Our stories, once preserved in family tapes and albums, were now living, breathing extensions of ourselves online. And then, as the years went on, another platform appeared. This is Instagram. When Instagram entered my world around 2012, everything changed once again. We went from uploading photos from our digital camera to our family computers to uploading them into a global archive. Our memories started to feel like public property. Unlike MySpace or Facebook, where text and conversation dominated, Instagram was visual storytelling at its core, okay? The square frame became the new diary page. Every filter, every single one, was a mood, an emotion, a way to shape how our lives looked. Suddenly, we weren't just curating moments as we began to do in the age of the digital camera. We were now editing them and choosing how they were to be received in the world. I am probably one of a rare amount of people that actually never deleted anything off of my Instagram page to this day. Usually, I would look at this as a flaw. I don't think I should have my whole life on broadcast. But looking back on everything, I'm actually happy that I have this archive of my life. Prom. I remember this night so clearly, even now 12 years later. Photos with friends I knew throughout my middle and high school years that I no longer talk to, memories still alive through my page. And this was graduation day. I remember thinking life was about to start moving fast, and I was right. When I moved to college at Temple University in the beginning of my college career, I had no idea that I would soon be moving to Orlando, Florida. I moved into a different version of myself and a new chapter in my book of life that I still cherish to this day. One chapter where I actually became pregnant. My pregnancies are captured through my Instagram page, both in Orlando with my first daughter, Nalea, when I was 19 years old, and also with my new baby, Aria, who is now one that I had at 29. All saved within the boxes on my page. You can also trace my job history through my page. From working at a clothing store by the name of Steinmart, to the supermarket giant in my high school town, to Subway when I moved to Orlando. My Subway era, clocking in, clocking out, and dreaming bigger the whole time. I even captured my week-long career working at a Hess gas station. But it taught me that I deserved better. Then came the call center when I was pregnant. And then I moved to Georgia, where I started working at Walgreens. Oh, my Walgreens chapter was long, but it also was a stepping stone for me to get to the next era of my life, where I began interning at a radio station at the end of my college career. And I also started interning for a celebrity, going on tour. Being on tour was a whole different chapter. This was the first time that I saw what it looked like to build a life around your passion. I was in rooms with people that I had watched on TV and listened to on the radio from when I was a kid. And then I also captured the first stages of my own personal business, Vivid Visionary Promotions, doing graphic design. And then from there, I stepped into my acting career, starting off with small ads, paying small amounts, to national commercials.
It's a minute to the kick. And it's not a kickoff without the small places that make game day big. So raise your glass and kick off a crown.
And eventually a feature film where I got to walk on not one, not two, but 3 red carpets. As I mentioned earlier in the essay Designing a Database Cinema by Marcia Kinder, she talks about how databases can tell non-linear stories through the organization of fragments, and that is exactly what Instagram became. A living database of personal archives, constantly updating and evolving over decades. Each post is a node, each story a temporary frame in the larger film of who we are online. But this database, this cinematic database, also introduces distance. The database self is not the private self. On Instagram, we perform for the algorithm and the audience, and yet there's still beauty in this performance. Instagram becomes a visual language of connection, a global photo book where millions of individual lives coexist. We post our breakfasts, our heartbreaks, our newborns, our losses. We post the evolution of friendships, of relationships, and we watch others do the same. The personal has become public, but the public has also become personal. This evolution echoes Klutenberg's archaeology of imaginary media, where he reminds us that every new technology carries the ghost of what came before. Instagram's filtered nostalgia, the grain, the different textures, tries to recreate the texture of analog memory, mimicking the warmth of the VHS. The past is always whispering beneath the pixels. TikTok isn't just an app. It's a stage, a classroom, a confessional booth, and a mirror. Here, personal storytelling is instant. We record, edit, and upload within minutes. Stories are told in seconds, stitched and remixed by strangers around the world. Klutenberg might call this the archaeology of the present. Each TikTok trend, each meme becomes a fossil of who we are in that moment. And these trends seem to change pretty quickly. But there's something haunting here too. VHS tapes, aged and faded, they could disappear. But TikToks don't. They live in the cloud, endlessly circulating, detached from the intimacy that once defined our home videos. Youngblood believed media would expand human consciousness, and in some ways, TikTok has. It's collective storytelling on a scale that we've never seen. Millions of personal narratives overlapping, remixing, and evolving together. But it's also an echo chamber, curated by algorithms that decide what's worth remembering. At the end of the day, the story that we are trying to tell through our personal narratives hasn't really changed. We're still trying to say, hey, this is me. But what's changed is who's watching and how permanent the watching feels. From VHS to TikTok, our tools have evolved, but our need to tell these stories hasn't. We record to remember. We share to connect, just like we always have. And we archive to understand who we are and who we were before the world started watching.